Hi, guys, and welcome back to Too Much. This is always so weird giving you an update without anyone asking me. But so glad you asked. I've had a great week. I just got back from St. Croix actually last night. Mr. Wright took me to St. Croix for my birthday. I feel like my birthday's been going on for like 2 months at this point, but it was a very relaxing trip. He unfortunately got a little sick the first couple days, so it truly was extremely relaxing. We were in bed watching Netflix at like 9 p.m. every night. Spent a lot of time on the beach. I did have far too many pina coladas, but yeah, nothing crazy to report. I guess this is what vacations are when you get to my age. But since I've gotten back, I have hit the ground running. I woke up at 6:30 today and had to immediately start working. I had client work to take care of, podcast work to take care of, and then tomorrow I have a photo shoot for another client. So today has been absolutely psychotic, which brings me to what I am talking about today, which is how I started my business and overall just being an entrepreneur and how to start your own company. Now, before I say any of this, I want it to be very clear that I am not a financial advisor, nor am I a business advisor, and any advice you take from me, I cannot be held responsible for. But this is what I did, and this is how I got to be sitting here in this room. My story is pretty interesting, I think. It had a lot of ups and downs. I've had to get over innumerable hurdles, but it made me into a stronger businesswoman. So let's start from the beginning. I have always been a hustler. Truly, since as young as 5 years old, I have been making that money. Anything from bake sales to lemonade stands to selling rocks on my front yard in the cul-de-sac. I did anything I could to make a buck. Now, I know I can attribute this to my parents and how they raised me. You know, they always taught us to know the value of a dollar, but I just always wanted to be as successful as I could possibly be. And I didn't quite know in what aspect. I mean, when I was very young, I wanted to be a singer. I wanted to be an actress, a superstar, then a vet, then a marine biologist, then a journalist. It was all over the place. But no matter what, I knew that I wanted to be on top, that I wanted to be a CEO or start my own company and be my own boss. So I started working as early as I could. At age 14, I was working behind a pizza counter at a restaurant called Gino's in Mahopac, New York. If you know it, you know it. It was like the best Italian restaurant. One of those Italian restaurants that like you order an entree and no matter what, they give you a starting salad. They give you a side of pasta. All the things. It's like a mom and pop shop. The mom worked there, the two sons worked there, and every girl that they hired who worked there, they then hired her sister. Which is probably a little weird looking back at it, but that's what they did. So my sister and I both worked there. And I started at age 14. The day I got my working papers that I was able to, I started working. And I was there every single Friday night and then 2 or 3 nights during the week. And I sacrificed my time for the dollar. I always just wanted to make money. Always my goal. So did that all throughout high school, literally 4 years, which little did I know would be the longest I would ever hold a job. After FIT, I started my first job halfway through senior year. Didn't even wait to graduate. I got kind of picked up, poached by a very big fashion brand, which to me was a dream. I was like, oh my God, I went to FIT and I landed a job in fashion. This is what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. I'm going to be Miranda Priestley, and then that's going to be it. Didn't happen. I had a bunch of internships throughout college and even some side jobs. Like I'm pretty sure at one point I was going to school. I was working at Vince Camuto as a shoe salesperson. And then at night, I was a hostess at Tao Downtown. First 6 months that it opened, like when it used to be cool. And not because I needed to. I just liked having disposable money. I liked meeting people. And honestly, I swear to God, I think that's why my network is so broad. Because I worked 1,000 jobs when I was younger, and jobs that weren't, you know, that important in my career path, like being a waitress, being a hostess, whatever it may be. But I met so many people. And the thing about networking is that you don't know if a person on the street is going to be a lead, if they're going to bring you business, if they're going to start Apple one day and want to bring you in. You have no idea. So you can never burn your bridges. And obviously it's always good to just like keep in touch with people if you drive well. And that's the beauty of social media. So after college, I did not stay in a single job for over a year and a half. That could be attributed to me and my personality, or it could be attributed to kind of just the climate of the corporate world today. I feel like younger millennials and especially Gen Z, they have this feeling of you can't excel, get promoted, or get a raise unless you're switching jobs and switching companies. It's a lot harder to get a promotion, get a raise these days. In fact, I don't think I have ever gotten a promotion. I've switched roles a couple times, but never have I gone from coordinator to manager somewhere. I always kind of left before that was possible. And don't get me wrong, like, I was a great employee. I don't think there's any employer that I've ever had where I burned a bridge or I left a bad taste in their mouth. I was always hungry and aggressive and driven, not to toot my own horn, but I was. But I had a problem with authority, or at least that's what I thought. And although I was no longer living at home, my parents still did have, a lot of opinions on my career and what I was doing and how often I was changing jobs. And they were like, what are you doing? This isn't how it works. And I'm like, you're a baby boomer or whatever their generation is called. You have no idea what you're talking about. They came from the generation where they stay in a job for 20 years. And like, that's just really not the case anymore. And if you do, that's amazing. Great. Good for you. It's just not a requirement anymore as a reflection of who you are as an employee. And that's also what my parents did. They were in jobs for 15, 20 years. They climbed the corporate ladder. My sisters climbed the corporate ladder. And then there was me, who was hip hopping around to all these different jobs. And my parents were like, what the fuck are you doing with your life? And I think that's something that a lot of us experience. And we have it hammered into our brains that we need to climb this corporate ladder and follow in the footsteps of our parents. And I think because of this, we never consider the possibility of going out on our own and starting our own companies because we don't know what we don't know or what our parents know. Granted, this is very different if your parent is an entrepreneur. I'm sure they raise you in a much different household, but that's not the household I was raised in. So as I'm going around from job to job, I'm really reflecting on why this is so. And my parents always like to remind me that I am the common denominator. It must be you, not them. Why do you hate every single boss, Emma? Why do you hate every single job, Emma? It must be you. You're the problem. I love my parents. They really have always motivated me and kept me grounded, clearly. But this is what I was always reminded of. And my conclusion of it all was that I have a problem with authority. But I don't really think that was the reality. I've really never been good at taking orders. And it's not that I was rebellious just for the sake of being rebellious. I just physically could not handle someone dictating my every move. And it turns out that that was not a flaw, but the foundation of my success. There's actually science behind this. Psychologists call this a high need for autonomy. And it's actually a trait that's found in most successful entrepreneurs. So as you're sitting there beating yourself because you're like, why am I having such a hard time with all these bosses? Why am I having such a hard time at work? Maybe you can flip the script a little bit and look at it as, well, maybe that's because I'm not cut out for it. And maybe it's because I'm cut out for something far bigger. So if you've ever felt like you were a bad employee or struggled with authority, maybe the problem wasn't you. Maybe you were built to lead. But as I was preparing for this episode, I did do a bit of research, and there were so many studies done of this need for autonomy and this need for control that kind of sorts people into two different boxes. Ones who need direction and need to be delegated, and other people who prefer to lead and believe that they can shape their own outcomes. And then these people with this high need for autonomy, if they are sitting there at a desk job and being told what to do all the time and they're getting low autonomy, they're going to experience burnout and dissatisfaction and leave their jobs, like me. And Harvard Business Review actually did a study that people with a natural aversion to authority are more innovative and resilient in unpredictable environments. So if you've always hated being micromanaged and struggled with a traditional career path, this might not be a weakness. This could actually be your strength, and it should be a sign to create your own career path. So once I figured this out, I was probably around 26. I was working a full-time job and COVID hit. I realized that I was being a little bit underutilized at my job, and idle hands do the devil's work. I mean, I was procrastinating. I wasn't motivated. I was just like, blah, blah, blah. What the fuck am I doing here? And luckily, I was working from home because it was COVID. So I got the opportunity to take on a side client. And that is when my side hustle began. When I've talked about my career in the past, I didn't really talk numbers because that was just something that my parents always taught me not to do. They were like, don't talk about how much money you make, which I agree. And if you're in a social setting, like, don't. But I feel like it's really helpful to understand how much you could be making if you are looking to start your own business or start a side hustle. And especially if you're doing what I did, which is social media. I did a lot of social media management for people. I would run their Instagrams or their TikToks once that became a thing, create content for them, all the above. That's really how it started. And to give you an idea, the first client I brought on, I was charging them $4K a month just to run their Instagram. Maybe TikTok also at the time. I think that was like really when it started picking up. But still, when you think about that, that's an extra $48K a year on top of my salary because this was my side hustle. So if you have the bandwidth with your full-time job, a side hustle is an amazing way to dip your toe into the entrepreneur lifestyle and the lifestyle of running your own business, because that's one where you're really bringing on a client and it's like your own mini business. That was the first client I brought on. Then I got a second one and I was charging them $3K a month. So now we're at $7K a month on top of my full-time job. So when this started to happen, I was like, oh, fuck. This might actually be something I can do, because if I'm making this off 2 clients, what if I have 5 clients? And that's kind of where I really started to get motivated. So at this point in time, I was at a plant-based snack company. I was their senior social media manager, but I had actually been working with the VP to become their creative director. I was super pumped about it. That was like one of my dream roles. And he ended up getting let go before that could happen. So I kind of marched into the founder's office and I was like, hey, I just want to let you know where we were in this process and I don't want to lose momentum here. And he was like, oh, this is the first I'm hearing of this. Whether that was true or not, I'm not sure. But he was like, yeah, like let's see if we can do this. You have to build your team around you first and blah, blah, blah. Like, here are all the steps. And I was like, okay, great. I told him that I wanted to get into events and just a larger creative position, branding, all of that. Shortly after, my grandfather passed away. And my grandfather was like my biggest cheerleader as far as this hustle and this grind and me going after my dream. Specifically, he would always say, if you can sell rocks, you can sell anything. Because I used to sit on my front fucking stoop, crack open some rocks, lay them out on a paver slab, and sell them for $2 a pop in 2004. No, that's a lie. 2002, 2001. Yeah, I was very young. 2004 would be embarrassing. So he was my biggest cheerleader. And once he passed away, I was like, okay, this is it. This is my time. And I went home legitimately right after the funeral and I came up with my company name, which is Jack of All. The name Jack of All is primarily derived from my grandfather, Jack. And then it was derived from a little jab that my parents always used to say to me, which is, you can't be a jack of all trades because you're going to be a master of none. And I would say, but why? I want to do everything. Why can't I be a jack of all trades? So in lies the name, Jack of All. But I spelt it sexy, did a V instead of a K, and put a couple dots over it, which I'm pretty sure make it pronounced a different way, like Jackavel, but like, shh, don't tell anyone. I was still working at my full-time job, but I was like, let me gear up. Let me get together all these clients so I can match my salary, and then I'll leave my company. That was my thought process. I underestimated how much time and effort that would actually take. So that didn't really pan out that way. But I came up with the company name, came up with the colors, and I started a business plan. Shortly after, I was in the office and my CEO was like, hey, we need someone to do the partnerships. Would you like to do this? And I said, sure, but I don't know anything about this. I don't have experience in it, but I'm down to wear many hats and I'm really excited about this company. So absolutely. So I took this on and I put the company on the back burner. This was in December. If you know anything about influencer partnerships, December and January are the worst times to try and activate any sort of an influencer partnership. They're all traveling, they're all on vacation, they're all on holiday, whatever it is. It's just very difficult. So I was doing it for about a month. I wasn't really making too much of an impact yet. And then I went on vacation to Tulum. Now, this is going to be the most LA thing I'll ever say in my life, but I had a bit of an awakening when I was in Tulum, specifically when I was in a Temazcal, which is a sweat lodge. So I was in there with a shaman. Don't ask me how I even got into this situation. It was like something offered at the hotel we were staying at, and I just did it. But essentially, it was like 200 fucking degrees in this thing. This shaman was coming in and like slapping the stones and pouring water on these like volcanic stones and then like making us set intentions and say all these words. And I was just trying to fucking stay alive because it was so hot in there. But as you're doing that, you're kind of in this like fight or flight mode in your brain. And they did have me set some intentions on my career and my life and all these things. So I was like, I'm going to fucking start my own company. I'm going to do this. So I emerged from this Temazcal. And I was so motivated. So I decided that when I was going to get back from my trip that I was going to quit my job. And I was going to just go be a waitress or something just to have some sort of an income while I figure things out. I shit you not. The day after I get back from Tulum, it was my birthday. And I walk into the office and like my team's not there. I'm like, this is kind of weird. It's my birthday. But I don't think anything of it. So I go about my business. And then at the end of the day, at like 6 p.m., CEO calls me into the office and he's like, come here, I want to chat. And I was like, okay. And I walk in and he fucking fired me. And he goes, birthdays are for new beginnings and let me go. Because I did not have enough experience in partnerships, which is what I fucking told him. I said, I don't have experience in this, but I'm down to try. And then he fired me for it. Not cool. Not cool. But I just had this amazing awakening. So I was like, you know what, dude, fuck you. Rejection is redirection. So I kind of gave him a little like, okay, I did fucking tell you this, but that's fine. And I just said, thank you for this opportunity. And I walked out. I went to dinner that night for my birthday because it was legitimately my birthday. Oddly enough, Ellen Pompeo and Eric Dane were at the very small restaurant that I was at and they sang me happy birthday. So like little highlight to the day. That was cool. By the way, I was living in LA. If that wasn't clear before, it's clear now. But at dinner, I was just like, you know what? Fuck it. This is my time. I'm going to start my own company. And I decided I wasn't going to look for a job and I was going to get uncomfortable and fight through it like hell, do what I'd always dreamed of. So I got to work. So luckily, like I said, I had already gotten the name and the logo. I did like start a business plan that night, but to be honest, like I didn't fucking need one with what I wanted to do, I think. I mean, I'm sure maybe some people do, but like I'm not that kind of a person. I just need to fucking go. And that's what I did. So this was a Monday. I texted my friend who's a photographer in LA, amazing photographer. If you are in LA, his name is Alex Stone. Plug in him. He's awesome. He's shot like Tinks and Alex Cooper and Sabrina Carpenter, and he's just fucking amazing. So I texted him and I was like, hey, are you around this week? And could you possibly shoot me? Because I had always hired him for my social media clients and I was never on this side of the camera, which is odd to say now. But he was like, yeah, I'm free on Thursday. And I was like, okay, well, I was just let go from my job and I'm looking to start a company and I need some professional photos taken and will you do it? So he said yes. And from Tuesday morning to Thursday morning, I worked like hell on graphics and the Instagram and just all of the superficial frontline things that a brand needs. The website, all that. And then of course the styling for the photo shoot. I should probably mention what this company was that I was starting because I just realized I never even said that. If it wasn't already assumed, essentially I was starting a creative agency. And although my strong suit was like social media, I didn't want it to just be social media because like I said, I am a jack of all trades. I wanted it to be everything. And eventually I wanted to grow it so big that it could be everything. I'd bring in other experts and people who are good at all these things. So essentially the services that I offered were social media, event curation. I didn't call it planning. I called it event curation, which I think is so sexy. Influencer partnerships, art direction, creative direction, graphic design, branding, literally anything and everything. I think I even had meme creation on there because I am very good at making memes. Fun fact about me. So I knew what it was. Now I just had to present it and make it look good. So we are at Thursday. I planned this photo shoot. Nothing has ever been more me. I did a power suit and sneakers and I ordered disco balls off of Amazon and I just walked into it and I was like, I have no fucking clue what I'm doing, but let's go. Also, I did not tell him that I wasn't feeling that great that day. Turns out I had COVID. LOL. But that wasn't gonna stop me. So I did this photo shoot and bless his heart, he had everything back to me by that night. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to announce to the world that I have a company. Now, mind you, I probably had like 3,000 to 4,000 followers at the time. That's probably a lie. Maybe even like 2,000 to 3,000 followers. Not a lot of people. But as you'll find out, these people were strong followers. It was a very strong network that I honestly didn't even realize was as strong as it was. The next morning after the photo shoot, I put together a couple graphics and I just announced on the Jack of All page and then I reposted it to my Life of Emma page. Maybe I did post on both, but whatever, details. And I said, I have a company, meet Jack of All. I didn't really say anything about getting fired because at the time I wanted to guide the narrative. I didn't want it to take away from the narrative. So I just said, you know, this has always been a dream of mine to start my own company and here it is. Said what I offered. I did like a little, services guide and everything. And I did a couple posts on the Instagram. Fired Monday, photo shoot Thursday, launched the company Friday. And I had 3 motherfucking clients by Monday. That is legitimately how it happened. Like there's no other way to put it. Everyone in my network just responded to me and they were like, oh my gosh, congratulations. They already knew me for social media. They already knew that I was good at it. So they were like, I have someone that needs social media work done, or come work for me. It was just like an outpour of people who wanted to give me work. And I'm not saying that to brag by any means. I'm saying that because I always nurtured every relationship that I've ever had. Friendship, even the exes. I always stayed in good graces, or tried to. They're probably listening to this and like, no, I fucking hate you, but whatever. I would keep in touch on social media, say happy birthday, try to meet up with people, whatever it was. And I also just posted so often that people just like knew what I was up to and they liked my vibe and my aesthetic. And it all just kind of clicked. So that's how the company began. So what I learned in this launch, and the biggest piece of advice I can give anyone that is looking to start their own company, is just start. For all intents and purposes, I faked it before I made it. I legitimately said I had a company and I didn't, but I was going to. And if you build it, they will come. I did my fair share of research because I had COVID and I couldn't leave my house for 5 days. So I did just hunker down and do all of this work and research and set everything up over that weekend. Honestly, with all the tools out there and the platforms, they make it really easy for you to start a company. So now to get into the nitty-gritty of things. I used Wix.com to start my website. Super fucking easy. I just popped in some pictures. I made it really basic. Like all you really need is just like a landing page. I used GoDaddy.com to buy the domain and see if it was available. That's definitely like the first thing you should do. Just like park that domain, park those Instagram handles. If you have an idea, even if you're not planning on acting on it now, if you have the name, just get it. I probably have like 50 Instagrams out there because of like all these company ideas that I've wanted to have over the years. Like I have an online vintage store like that I just one time created because I thought that was going to be how I was going to become successful, is a vintage store, but that was not my path. So website, domain, Instagram handles, and then all the other social media handles as well, obviously. I got my LLC on LegalZoom. Super easy, very inexpensive. You have to pick like what state you want to do it in. And then I started building up my contracts. Once I had those first clients, I was like, all right, well, I gotta get a contract in place. So I went on to rocketlawyer.com. By the way, none of this is sponsored. None of this is paid by these companies. I'm just like literally giving you my toolbox and my handbook of how I did this all because I was scrappy as fuck. I didn't really ask anyone for help. Go figure, me, the fucking hyper independent. And I didn't really have a mentor other than my dad. I think I talked to a couple other people, but they all gave me the same advice, like just start. I heard a quote once that was, if you don't absolutely hate your first company and your first brand, how it looked when you first started it, then you didn't do it right. And that's the thing. You can change it. All these superficial things, you can rebrand, you can grow, and they will change as you learn and as they adapt to your needs better or you adapt to your clients' needs better. Like just fucking start. I don't hate how Jack of all looks. I think that's sleek. It's black and white and like sage and a little off-white. Those are my colors and the logo is sick. So I don't regret any of that. But like when I look at Unhinged, that wasn't me. Pink on me? No, none of that fit me. It really didn't. So, I mean, this fits me. So anyways, I went on to Rocket Lawyer, built out some contracts. I still use that to this day. They literally templatize the whole thing for you. So you could just say, I'm an independent contractor and I'm working in social media. And it builds out this contract for you. And it's binding. It works. That's what I did. I've done that for 3 years. And then business cards. Like I know it's 2025 and I know hardly anyone carries a business card anymore, but you know how fucking sexy and sick it was when I whipped out my business card when a grown ass man would ask me for my contact information? It was so sick. Also, like I just felt so like, here's my card. Like, I don't know why Jennifer Coolidge just came out of me, but that's, here's my card. Oh yeah, baby. Give me a ring. Fun fact, I'm great at impressions. God, I'm in a room laughing by myself. Thank you, Tian, for laughing at me. Anyways, to get business cards, they're really cool. I ordered mine from moo.com. Don't ask how I found that. And then I had to start finding clients. I thought I had to start finding clients. This is a humble brag, or just a brag. But since the day that I started my company, I have yet to do any cold outreach or any outreach at all. Every single client I've ever gotten has been word of mouth. So I am proof. I am the pudding. Networking is everything. And you need to massage and cultivate all of these relationships around you. So once I started getting these clients, I was faking it until I made it. I told people I had an agency, but I didn't. And these were Uncle Ned's kids from fucking Wisconsin that someone was referring me to. They didn't know me. They didn't know how much I'd built out my company. They didn't know other clients I had. So I was kind of able to just do whatever. So what I did, as far as how I structured my business plan and my offerings, was I made it a la carte. Now, if you're listening to this and you're looking to start your own company, this is probably very particular to an agency type of a company. But what a la carte means is essentially I let them choose their own adventure. I would first meet with the client and we would chat about their needs, where their weaknesses are, where their strengths are, what their vision is for the company. And then I would tell them what I do, what I've done in the past that pertains specifically to what they're selling in their product. And then I would say, here's where I can fill in the blanks. And we would build the plan based off of that. Now, this whole a la carte thing really puts you in the driver's seat because everything is up to you. And the beauty about having an agency is they don't know how much you're charging other clients. So you can just decide. You could just be oh, today it's $10,000, tomorrow it's $2,000. It's really up to you because hopefully your clients aren't talking to each other. You don't tell them who else you're working with. So you can decide. I would say, here's everything that I would provide, and this is how much I would charge. And 99% of the time, they are going to negotiate down. So you always want to highball them, but not too much to where you're going to scare them. Like I said, you don't need to charge everyone the same. When you're running your own business, you really need to have a firm understanding of what exactly you're charging for. Because you're not only charging for your skill or your expertise, you are charging for your time. And the less time you have, the more valuable it becomes. I mean, that's just a metaphor across your entire life. As you get older in a relationship, the less years you have, the more valuable your time becomes. It's true across the board. And there's a reason for that. If you look at a client and you say, you're going to be really fucking high maintenance and be a pain in my ass, up the charge. If they seem like they make a lot, or they're a very big company, or they make a lot, up it. Or if they are going to have a really high output as far as what you're doing and creating for them, up it a little bit. But then at the same time, I never try to screw anyone over. I'm not trying to be an asshole agency. There's definitely been a lot of companies where I believe in them, I jive with them, I'm passionate about it, and I know that I can add so much value that they'll eventually have more money to pay me more in the future. So I have taken a lower rate with certain clients. You need to know how to balance it out with yourself. Some can be higher, some can be lower, but keep an eye on how much time you're spending on these clients. Because if they're lowballing you and you're spending the most time on them and they're the biggest pain in the ass, that's not a good client to have. Also, when you're going through this process, this isn't for everyone. I'm not trying to generalize this statement, but the people who try to haggle you and try to bring you down and nickel and dime the whole situation of well, can we up the TikTok here and this and that? They're probably going to end up needing a lot more than they're letting on, in my experience. And they're most likely going to end up screwing you over. So just be wary of that because I've run into that quite a few times. The people who negotiate me down, especially startups, have the tendency to need a lot more than they're letting on. And it's also their baby. That's what you have to remember when you're dealing with a founder or a very small company. That is their fucking baby. So those people are going to be on you like white on rice, which is okay, as they should be. It is literally their pride and joy. But just know that that's what you're walking into. There's no slacking. There's no being hands off and having it be on the back burner. Those are the people that are really going to need your time and your effort. So now that I've laid down the groundwork with these clients, back to the story of my journey, I don't want you to think that I knocked this out of the park the second I started this company. I was fucking terrified. I did not necessarily know where I was going to be getting my next paycheck. That comfort is something you're giving up. That comfort of having a check come in every 2 weeks, benefits provided, that's gone. So I had to figure out my own insurance. I had to figure out what I was doing with the 401k, all these things. That part of it is not so fun. The other stuff is really fun, but that side of things was scary and also not my strong suit. I'm someone who thinks with both sides of my brain. I'm very logical and business oriented. And then on the other side, I'm also extremely creative. But when it comes to the most important responsibilities like health insurance, I'm not very good at that. Just going to be honest. So it took me a while to kind of figure that out. Because I had been let go, I did have Cobra, which is a thing in LA. I don't know if it's a thing here too, in New York. I'm pretty sure it is. But that's where it's like a continuation of your insurance. So I had that for a while, and then I did have to figure it out on my own. And insurance can be really expensive. I mean, it's like $700 a month sometimes. So you really need to make sure that you have savings, you have something to fall back on, and never stop your business development. The biggest thing I've learned is that clients come and clients go. So you always need to have one on the back burner. You have to have a couple leads going on, because it's like if one falls out, you got to have some wheels set in motion already so that you're able to just pick another one up right when you need to. On that note, I never, hardly ever, say no to a client. I just say, yes, I have bandwidth, because then you know what? You scale. You hire someone so that you can handle all of these clients and you can load up your plate more, and then you offload to your employee. I have been rambling for so long, so I'm definitely going to make this a part 2. This is part 1, and I'll get into the whole employee aspect another day, but that's how I scaled. I hired my first employee probably, I want to say after like 3 months, but I paid hourly. I found someone who wanted a side hustle, like an old me, and I brought them in as my social media coordinator. And I decided what I could delegate and what they could handle on their own. And that also helps with your pricing. I mean, if you're paying them, let's say $1,500 a month because they're working 10 hours a week or something, then you're going to have to subtract that from what you're bringing in. But it's also a way where you can really bring on a lot more clients. To give you an exact example, I was paying an employee once $2K a month, but I'm pretty sure I was bringing in $25K for a couple of those months, like each month. So that was like a really nice profit margin for me there. But like I said, clients come and clients go. So at my highest, I was making like 30K in a month. But you know what? That only lasted for like 2 months. And then the next month, it went down to like 3 clients. Like they don't communicate with each other. They're not going to be like, oh, she's losing all these clients. I'm not going to leave right now. There's no mercy. They're just going to fucking leave if they want to leave. This is their money. So you need to save what you're taking in. Take a chunk out, because you're going to have to pay that in taxes at the end of the year. My parents always used to say to me, pretend 50% of this is going away. So just put away 50% of all of it so that when it comes time to pay taxes, you have that amount. It's not going to be 50% most likely. Maybe it is. I have no idea. But you'll have a cushion. So that's just like something to keep in mind. And also, like, I don't want anyone to think I'm literally making $30,000 every single month based off of my social media agency. I am not. That was like a fluke, couple of months, but they were really nice months. So it's not all rainbows and butterflies. It's not all easy, but I will say I would never go back. I would never go back to corporate. I would never want to give up the creative freedom I've had, the freedom with my time, and just the autonomy. I am someone who has a high need for autonomy. That is a fact. I know that. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. I think when I was younger, I thought Mark Zuckerberg had his company when he was like, fucking 22 or something. And I always felt late and behind. And then when I got to 30, I was like, wait, actually, not everyone has this all figured out. And I look at it and I'm like, okay, maybe it's more like 37, 38. I'll have it totally on lock. But to put it into perspective, in 3 years, I started a company. I started a podcast. I ended a podcast. I started another podcast. And I am literally just getting started. So like God knows what the next 3 years is going to bring. And also for perspective, I only have like 2 to 3 clients now because my main focus is the podcast. I don't know what your business will be if you're starting one, but each one is different. Each client is different. Each industry is different. This is just how I started my shit. It's been, Jesus, I think it's been 3 years, like 2 weeks ago. I didn't even say happy 3 year to me. I've been going through a lot, but 3 years with a company, 1.5 with one podcast, and 1 month with another podcast, which for all intents and purposes is a business in itself. So I technically started 3 businesses in 3 years, which is fucking crazy. I have like a million more pages of notes and other things that I want to talk about. So I will definitely do a part 2 just on the whole hiring employees process and being a boss and being a business owner, like once you're in it and how you deal with those dynamics. And also just like more on networking and more on scaling, because I did that for a little bit. I'm not trying to sit here saying like I have some uber successful agency and I have grown it to some great extent. I have not. It's really just been like my source of income once I started the podcasts, but I do know a little bit. Anyways, that's all for now. Thank you so much for going down this rabbit hole with me. Please, please, please follow on Spotify. Rate it 5 stars if you liked it. Won't tell you what to do. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok. It's Emma's Too Much. And yeah, I will see you guys next week. Bye.